They just took on two of the biggest corporations on planet Earth. And not with a protest, not with a petition, not with a passive-aggressive Instagram story. No, we are talking about a full-blown legal reckoning that has just sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. This isn't about a family feud, it's not about royal titles, and it's definitely not about a tell-all book. This is about a verdict that just landed like a hammer on a glass table, and the couple at the center of it just broke their silence in a way that has everyone from federal judges to your neighbor in the suburbs paying attention. According to reports that just emerged, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have issued a statement that many are calling unprecedented. But here's the kicker. It wasn't about them. It was about you, your kids, and the very fabric of how the world operates online. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another headline about the Sussexes? But stop right there. Because what we are about to unpack is not just a celebrity endorsement, it is a moment that legal experts are calling a seismic shift in how we hold the tech industry accountable. So, how did a courtroom in California, a 20-year-old plaintiff, and a royal couple become the unlikely alliance that just forced Meta and Google to face a jury? And why did the Duke and Duchess of Sussex drop everything to call this a reckoning? To understand the gravity of this, we have to look at the actual battlefield, the courtroom. On Wednesday, a U.S. jury did something that rarely happens. They looked at the algorithms that run our lives, the endless scroll that steals our sleep, and the platforms that shape our kids' reality, and they said, no more. According to the legal filings, the case was brought by a woman who is now just 20 years old. She alleged that her childhood addiction to social media, specifically platforms owned by Meta, that's Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, along with YouTube, actively worsened her mental health struggles. Now, here is where the first dopamine hit comes in. The jury didn't just agree with her, they recommended she be awarded a staggering $6 million in damages. Pause for a second. Let that number sink in. $6 million. That's the price tag a jury attached to the claim that these platforms were deliberately designed to maximize user engagement at the expense of a child's safety. But wait, because this is where the story gets even more interesting. Meta and Google, the parent company of YouTube, have already said they will appeal. They are digging in. Which begs the question, why would two tech titans risk the public relations nightmare of fighting this instead of just settling? Well, because if they don't appeal, they risk opening a floodgate that could drown them in similar lawsuits. And that is exactly where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle enter the frame. Now you might be wondering, why would a royal couple who live in Montecito care about a tech liability case in California? Well, according to sources close to the couple, this isn't a new hobby for them. This has been a core focus of their foundation, Archwell, for years. But what they just did is take it to a whole new level. According to the statement released following the verdict, they didn't just offer a casual congrats, they issued a bombshell. They said, and I'm paraphrasing here for impact, that this verdict is a reckoning. Let me read you a line from the statement because the language here is incredibly deliberate. They said, for too long, families have paid the price for platforms built with total disregard for the children they reach. That is a scathing indictment. That isn't diplomatic royal speak. That is a declaration of war against the business model of social media. But here's the mini payoff. They didn't stop there. They immediately followed up by saying they stand with every parent and young person who refused to be silenced. Today, the truth has been heard and a precedent has been set, they said. The curiosity gap I want to leave you with right now is this. If Meta and Google are appealing, does a precedent even matter? Or is this just the first step in a much larger battle that could actually change the way Instagram and YouTube work forever? Let's zoom out for a second and look at the irony here. Because I have to be honest with you, this is a little wild. You have a couple who have had their fair share of battles with the media, who have spoken out against the toxicity of the tabloids, now taking on the infrastructure of the internet itself. It's like they looked at the landscape and decided to go straight to the source. But here's the nuance that the headlines are missing. The case wasn't just about the 20-year-old plaintiff. According to court documents, other major platforms like Snapchat and TikTok were also named in the original lawsuit. However, they chose to settle before the trial even began. They took the exit ramp. Meta and Google, they chose the highway. They decided to fight, and that decision is what led to this massive public verdict. A spokesperson for the couple described the trial as a turning point before the verdict was even announced. They saw this coming, and now, with the verdict in hand, they're using their global megaphone to amplify it. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. If a jury can decide that these algorithms are harmful, what happens to the rest of us who are still addicted to them? That is the loop that is now open. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how the tech giants responded, because this is where the script flips. Meta's spokesperson came out swinging. They said teen mental health is profoundly complex and cannot be linked to a single app. And you know what? On the surface, they have a point. Mental health is complex. It's influenced by friends, family, school, genetics, the weather, you name it. But here's the satisfaction hit and the immediate follow-up hook. The jury wasn't convinced. They saw the internal documents, the emails, the data, the very architecture designed to keep you scrolling for just 5 more minutes for hours on end. Meanwhile, Google's lawyers tried a different tactic. They argued that YouTube is not even a social media site. I know, I laughed too. They claimed it is a responsibly built streaming platform. So, according to Google, you haven't been spending hours falling down recommendation rabbit holes on YouTube. You've just been responsibly streaming. It's a fascinating defense, isn't it? It's a semantic argument in a courtroom that has real-world consequences for kids. So, while Google is trying to argue that YouTube is basically just like a library, the jury looked at the evidence and decided that a library doesn't usually have an algorithm designed to push you towards content that holds your attention hostage. This brings us back to Harry and Meghan's role in all of this. According to sources, this isn't just about a single verdict for them. It's about legacy. If you remember, back in 2025, they unveiled a memorial in New York City, and it wasn't for a political figure or a war hero. It was a memorial dedicated to young people who lost their lives due to the harmful effects of social media. Think about that for a moment. A physical memorial in one of the biggest cities in the world dedicated to kids who were lost to the digital world. That's not a publicity stunt. That is a long-term commitment to a cause. So when they say, let this be the change where our children's safety is finally prioritized above profit, they're echoing the very words that were carved into that memorial. It creates a consistency of narrative that is actually quite rare in the world of celebrity activism. But here's the brutal truth, and this is where my personal opinion comes in. As much as I admire the sentiment, and I truly do, the cynic in me watches the tech giants say we will appeal and thinks, here we go again. These companies have infinite money. They have armies of lawyers. A $6 million verdict is pocket change to them. It's less than the cost of a Super Bowl ad. So is this actually a reckoning, or is it just a Tuesday for Meta's legal department? That is the critical question that this entire story hinges on, and the answer might actually lie in the psychological impact of the verdict, not the financial one. Because here's the dopamine hit for the day. The real damage to Meta and Google isn't the $6 million. It's the legal precedent. It's the fact that a jury of everyday people looked at the algorithm and said, you are responsible. That opens the door for thousands of other families to walk into court and say the same thing. That is why the Sussexes are calling it a reckoning. It's not about the money. It's about the admission of liability. And right now, the tech giants are appealing because admitting liability would force them to change their entire business model. Think about it. If they have to prioritize safety over engagement, the infinite scroll dies. The recommended feed changes. The dopamine loops that make these platforms addictive would have to be dismantled. And for a company that makes money the longer you stare at a screen, that is an existential threat. So where do we go from here? According to the timeline, the appeal will take months, if not years, but the cultural shift is already happening. The Sussexes used their platform to elevate this story from a niche legal filing in California to a global news headline within hours. They called for a change where our children's safety is prioritized above profit. And whether you love them or hate them, you have to admit that's a message that resonates with every parent who has ever tried to wrestle a phone away from a teenager at 2 a.m. The hook that keeps us watching is the uncertainty. Will the appeal hold? Will other states bring similar cases? And, most importantly, will this finally force the tech industry to admit that their algorithms aren't just neutral tools, but powerful forces that shape our reality? Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have thrown their weight behind the idea that the truth has been heard, but in the court of public opinion and the actual court of law, the battle has only just begun. So, the next time you open an app and feel that pull to keep scrolling, just remember, there is a royal couple, a jury in California, and a growing army of families who are fighting to make that scroll a little less dangerous. And if they win, the internet as we know it might never be the same. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.